basically. But you know, let's really think about that. And unity thinking is hard to grasp because everything's backwards. You know, we look out here and we think this is the cause and really it's the effect, and you know, so everything's backward thinking, and that's what's really hard to grasp and really hard to think about sometimes. And then we hear stuff in unity like there's enough of everything. You know, we shouldn't be lacking. You know, there's enough. Yet we look on the TV, we see people, certain people, you know, we see people lacking. You know, there's certainly we feel that we don't have enough of something in our life a lot of times. So why is that? Why is that? Ask and it is given. Why don't we have it? Don't really believe it? And that might be, you know what, we have a hard time believing it because it's so hard, it's all so abstract. It's hard to grasp if we can't use our five senses. You know, if we can't see it, hear it, touch it, smell it, you know, that kind of thing, it's hard to grasp. So that's one thing, we don't believe it. So, and this is all gonna go into, all of these things go into one thing that we're gonna talk about, one main thing. But why else? Why else don't we have it?
Because we're not ready to receive it. It's there for us. We're just not at that point in our life to receive it.
We're not ready to receive it. Very good. So why aren't we ready to receive it? What blocks us from getting it? Feeling unworthy. Feeling unworthy. It's a big one. Feeling unworthy. What else? Anybody else? We don't ask.
Yeah.
Wow. Let's start with that one. We don't ask. You know, how many times have we complained about things? You know, and really haven't went to the person and said, you know what, you know, I need something else from you. And especially like partners and stuff in relationships, that used to be a big thing in my relationship. I thought, if you love me, you should know what I need. So I don't ask. But you know, we need to ask. We need to ask people for what we need, but also we need to ask the universe also. But we need to ask in certain ways, and we're not going to go into that today. But we need to ask. You know, we need to ask. We need to let that out. So what else? Let's talk about not believing. What keeps us? And maybe it blocks us from receiving or from not believing or whatever. But I like what he says about the air. Now, okay, there's enough air. We all know there's enough air to breathe. We don't ever wake up and say, oh my God, I wonder if I'm going to have enough air today. You know, we don't say, you know what, I had enough air in my life. I'm going to not breathe today so that somebody else can breathe. Okay? We don't wake up and say, gee, you know, Sue, she needs a little bit more air. I'm going to give her some of mine. Right? Air is something that we know there's plenty of. So we don't say that. People would look at somebody and say, that's stupid, you know, if you think there's not enough air. So we know that there's enough air. So why is air so different from something else? But let's think about if somebody can't breathe right. If somebody can't breathe right, what do we say? They can't breathe because there's not enough air. Problems with that. Oh, problems with that. So, think about that. If air is like everything else, and we realize that there's enough air for everybody, and somebody can't breathe right, we say, problems with that. There's something blocking their ability to bring in the air. So when you put that into everything else, we look at this abundance and everything that's in the universe. There's enough, but there's some kind of blockage within us that prevents us from seeing it, prevents us from getting it. When I went to school, we studied a book called Loving What Is. And it's, it's too bad because she felt the same way I did about this. Katie Byron, and I'm sure you all, I don't know, maybe you haven't heard of it about Katie Byron. Byron Katie, I keep saying it the wrong way, it's Byron Katie. She wrote this book and she introduces what she calls the work. And it's a matter of looking at yourself. You know, you're looking at yourself and your beliefs and kind of breaking down those barriers that are preventing us from receiving. And when I first read this book, I was in victimhood. And let me explain about victimhood, because that's another concept people don't understand, is when we say about getting out of the victimhood, yes, in this physical life, things happen to us. When I was introduced to that book, I was in a bad time. Okay? I had been accused of something I didn't do. I lost my job, I lost my nursing license, I lost the ability to provide for my family, and it wasn't my fault. So was I a victim? I even got a lawyer to say I was a victim. So, you know, take my case on, because I was a victim. So, okay, so in the physical, something really did happen. However, why did that happen? Because I was a victim first. And for me to get out of that, I had to change from victim to victor. I had to change my thinking. So, okay, something starts out, and I hope I didn't give up. Okay, something starts out, and we say, I say, they shouldn't have done that to me. And Byron Katie would say, ask if that's true. Is that true? They should. Of course, they shouldn't have done that to me. Well, you know, did they really do anything to you? When you really look at the facts, I used to say, with all the facts, it looks bad. It looks, I don't know if I would have believed me at that time. You know, so really, you know, they did the best thing that they could. They did, so really, it wasn't really true, you know? So turn it around. It's always turning around to me. At that point, I was still a victim. I believed in victimhood. I brought on a lot of victimhood to myself. At that time also, I believed I wasn't worthy. So it was a matter of I had to believe I was worthy, so that until I got everything back, and until people could see the difference. And the thing is, like when you can imagine, when I read that book and I was in my victimhood at that time, I hated it. I said, this is ridiculous. Why would you want to turn something back on yourself? You know? And it is. Why would you want to turn something back on yourself? But once you realize that turning it back on yourself, it's empowering. It's empowering because then we have the ability to move, to change, to grow, to have things better. So think about things in our life that we say we don't have enough of, or things that are happening to us. Okay, like we don't say we don't have enough air. However, we say that somebody's not helping us enough. That's a big one. We're being taken advantage of. You know, we're just a doormat. So let's look at that and turn it around. For us to be a doormat, what do we have to do? Allow it. We have to lay down in front of the door. So, you know, it's a matter of looking at that and saying, you know, there's enough help. Am I asking for it? Am I allowing it? Or am I just laying down and saying, you know what? You know, I'm going to be the martyr, I'm going to be this, I'm going to be that. It's there. Several years ago, somebody on the board said they didn't feel like they were being spiritually fed. And I was very hurt by that. I was very hurt. I took that very personally. And I thought about it. And this person didn't come routinely to Sundays. They didn't come to any classes or anything like that. And I'm thinking, they didn't come to the table. You know, if we say that we're not being spiritually fed, are we coming to the table? When we say that we need things, are we doing what we need to do for us to get rid of those blocks? And sometimes we hold on to things because we get a little secondary gain from it too. You know, we get a little secondary gain. But we say, you know, I'm not good enough. People think that I'm not good enough. And why is that? Because we think we're good enough. And we subconsciously put that out there. You know, Eric Butterworth talks about a person that was very, very lonely and felt unloved. And some of his friends said, come to Unity. It's a really great community. You'll feel loved, you'll feel wanted, you'll feel like a part of the family. So he came, and it was a loving Unity community like ours. They came and they started the morning with hugs and, you know, singing, and this guy subconsciously or unconsciously, subconsciously kind of, you know, stepped back a little bit and didn't allow it. You know, he didn't feel that love, he didn't allow it. He left that day saying, that was the coldest place I've ever been. And why was that? Because the coldness was in him. And he didn't allow that love. So one of the things is, you know, we have to, and part of it is, you know, when we, just like Byron Katie says, we have to look at what we're saying. And then we have to say, you know what kind of is my part into this? And what do I have to change? And when we see that, that's when it becomes a gift. You know, what we're seeing. So, you know, that guy that came and couldn't find love, he had to look deep within. And the loneliness was in here. It wasn't out here. There was plenty of love, plenty of companionship, plenty of everything that he needed. But he was lacking in here. And when we start looking in here and seeing it in ourselves, that's when we start seeing it out there, because those blocks will automatically dissolve. I'm starting to buy children's books for our lending library, and I actually have some. I have some in a box here, so if anybody wants to look at those, they can go and take them home, and you know the kids can read them, or you can read them to the kids or whatever. But I got this one, and I'm going to order a whole bunch of them because I think everybody should have one, or at least read it. It's called The Simple Truth: Making Sense of God, Life, and Other Stuff. We as adults make things so complicated. We really do. Especially those, the analyzers, because I'm an analyzer too. You know, I've got to analyze everything. And it makes everything so difficult. And this is neat because if you want to know how to teach the principles of unity to your kids, read this, because it puts it in a simple way. If you want to understand the principles of unity better yourself, read this, because it puts unity in a simple way. But this is a little story that talks about, and the chapter is Gifts Galore. Gifts Galore, okay? And it says, several years ago, there was a story in the newspaper of a man who was holding a winning lottery ticket and didn't know it. He had somehow misplaced the ticket, and the week before it was about to expire, discovered it in an old pair of pants. He checked it out and was stunned to learn the incredible news. He was a millionaire for almost a year and never knew it. During that entire year, he had struggled financially, constantly behind in car payments, mortgage payments, and credit card payments. He'd had a difficult time just trying to make ends meet. Ironically, he'd had access to fabulous wealth beyond his wildest dreams and didn't know it. Think about the things that we might have access to in our lives. And we say we don't have enough. We don't have access to it. We can't find it. You know, we can't find it because there's a block in us to see it. That's why we're not finding it. So it's a matter of finding that block, where that block is, and letting it go. And most of the time, the block is seeing whatever we're looking for in here first. When we see our self-worth, other people will see our self-worth. When we see that love and express that love from our heart, other people will be more loving to us. When we open up and come to the table to be spiritually fed, we're going to find what we need. We led to where we need to go. It's a matter of finding it in here, opening up, and realizing that it's there already. You know, it's true. Just like the person with $1 million. We're struggling, victims, doing all of this when we have the ability to get out of that. But it takes work. It takes work. And you know, that's the challenge. Is it takes a lot of work and a lot of courage. But that's what we need to do, is to be willing to do that. To be willing to do the work and do the courage. And I never, and it's interesting, and one thing I like about Unity is, the way they, it's practical lessons. It's practical lessons of living today, how to change your life, how to prosper, how to tap into that substance and have what you need. But they take the Bible stories and put them in a whole different context because it's metaphysical. They're looking at it in a different way. It's not sin and guilt. And I don't know, do people remember the story of the prodigal son? Okay? What usually are the morals of the prodigal son? A lot of sin and guilt, right? I mean, taking the inheritance and spending it on all sinful things and lustful and stuff like that. You usually don't think of the moral of the prodigal son to be prosperity. But think about this, and this is very, very interesting, and this is out of this book too. It talks about, let me read the prodigal son, Unity's version of the prodigal son. A really profound story in the New Testament clearly illustrates how we inherit God's gifts. It is commonly referred to as the story of the prodigal son. Here is the gist. A man had two sons. The younger one, after asking his father to give him his full share of its inheritance, took the money and left home. He soon squandered the entire inheritance on meaningless things and ended up with no money, even for food. Remembering how much better things were back at his father's house, he decided to return home. Ashamed and sorry for having been such a jerk. That's what it says in there. I like that. Okay, ashamed and sorry for having been such a jerk, he humbly begged his father to treat him not as a son, but as a servant. But the father was so overjoyed to have his son back that he gave him a ring and beautiful clothes and had a great feast prepared to celebrate the return. Meanwhile, the older son became jealous of all the attention and gifts being lavished on his brother. He said it wasn't fair that he'd been a loyal son and hadn't run away as his brother had, and yet he'd never been treated to such gifts and celebrations. But his father explained to him that his thinking was wrong. The father told the other brother that he had always been a part of him and that everything he owned had always been his, simply for the asking. How ironic. The older brother had had access to his father's riches all the time, but obviously never took advantage of them, never asked for them. And that is exactly what we do when we aren't aware of God's spiritual gifts. So we never allow them to enrich our lives. And second, the first son took half of the inheritance thinking that that's all there was. That's an error in thought too, because there's always more. There's always enough. We can't spend life. It's always going on. We contribute, we flow. So it's a matter of, taking a look at where we're lacking in life, and then do the work. And I have come to actually love that book. I love the work, even though I hated it right in the beginning because it made me look at me, and there's no way that I did anything wrong. No way it could be me. But when you do that, you start asking yourself, is that true? And then when you really say, and of course you're going to say, yes, it's true, but then you say, is that really true? And one thing to ask when you say, is it really true? Is it true for everybody else? Because if it isn't true for every person, then it isn't really true. When you say there's not enough to go around, well, some people have enough, so that's not true. All of those different things. Is it true? If I say, you know what, I'm a terrible minister. Some people, say they're not getting spiritually fed. Is that true? I believe some people get spiritually fed here, and some don't. It's not true. But I have to believe that first, before I can relay that to anybody else. And you can say, I'm a good this, I'm a good that. I struggled right in the beginning when I first graduated from nursing school, because I always felt that I wasn't competent enough. I always second guessed myself. I felt like I wasn't up to snuff. And as long as I did that, I would make mistakes because I didn't have that confidence inside. So, ask yourself, whatever our self-talk is, whatever it is, that we're lacking or we're keeping ourselves away from, is to stop and say, you know, is that statement true? Is it really true? And then turn it around and say, what do I need to do? You know, and in my marriage, I say, if I would have known now, if I would have known then what I know now, how different things would be. Because, you know, I used to say, you know, I have to do everything. You know, I have to do everything. I'm a doormat, you know. Nobody helps me. And it was because I didn't ask. And I laid down in front of the door. So I'd have to say, is that true? No, that's not true. You know, I have to do everything? No, I don't have to do everything. And they did other stuff. I just didn't see what they did because I was so stuck in, I have to do everything. Didn't even see that part that they did. You know, so I'd ask myself, is that true? And then put it back on me. If I start taking care of myself, then other people will oblige also. I had to say, you know what, I'm worth time to myself. I'm worth, you know, being able to do what I want to do too. And once I was able to do that and find my own self-worth, they saw my worth too. So it's a matter of wherever we feel stuck, actually looking at ourselves. And it takes courage and bravery to do that, to turn it around on ourselves and say, what do I have to change? What belief do I have to change? What do I have to start opening up to see? And it's interesting because I love psychology, and I'll have to bring this in a little bit. You know, when we talk about our attitudes, they actually have done studies on attitudes and how people tend to look to find things to back up their attitudes. You know, and it's hard to, so of course, if I say I'm not worthy, I'm going to look at everything that points to me not being worthy and not see the things that make me worthy. And because they said they did lots of studies, and one of the things that really stuck out was in a presidential debate during an election year. They had people for one candidate, people for another candidate, and people that were, you know, they hadn't made up their mind yet. But they asked the people, after the debate, they asked the people who they thought won the debate. And each person that had their candidate said their candidate won the debate. And then when they asked, why do you think they won the debate? What part was the factor that won the debate? Most of them used the same one. But they saw their person winning it. Because they heard what they wanted to hear. They heard it the way they wanted to hear it. You know, it was there. It was in here. And that's one of the things about unity that's so confusing is everything that we see outside is in here. And if we want to change out there, we've got to change it here.
You are a child of creation. You must peel out the layers that you have learned. So Yoda says, you must unlearn what you have learned.
Yeah, and we do. We teach we learn our kids a lot. We teach our kids a lot. Then they have to grow up and unlearn it. So it's good. I love that. I love that there's younger kids here because they can start that already. Because they don't have to unlearn everything. And they can start thinking that already and how powerful that's going to be. That's going to be incredibly powerful. So, you know, next time we say we don't have enough, or I'm not worthy, or anything that we're that's stuck in our crawl, go back to Charles Fillmore when he says, you know, there's enough air for everybody. You know, we never say that there's not enough air. There's one other thing I want to read. And this is from Charles Fillmore, Prosperity. Even though there seems to be material lack, there is plenty of substance for all. We are standing in the very midst of it. Like the fish, we might ask, where is the water? When we live and move and have our being in it. It is like the water and the air, and in the air everywhere, abounding, glorious, spiritual abundance. Take that thought and hold it. Refuse to be shaken from your spiritual stand in the very midst of God's prosperity and plenty. And supply will begin to come forth from the ether, and plenty will become more and more manifest in your affairs. Whenever there's a point, and I like this one too, whenever there's a finger pointing, there's three pointing back at me. So, you know, when we start saying, that's the reason I don't have what I want, look at the three that are pointing back here. And then say, why don't I have what I want? It's back here. One other thing, I like this little story about the man in the flood. You know, sitting on the top of the roof, and you know, the flood's coming up, and people are saying, a little rowboat comes and says, "Jump in the boat, we'll save you." He said, "No, I trust God. God's going to save me." And then the water's rising, and a motorboat comes along and says, "Jump in, we'll save you." He says, "No, no, that's okay. You go save somebody else. God's going to save me." Then the water's rising, and it's getting up almost to the top, and a helicopter comes, and they throw down the rope, and they say, "Grab the rope, climb in." He goes, "No, God's going to save me." Well, he died. He drowned. And so he says to God, "What's up? Why did you save me? I believe." He said, "Well, I sent you a rowboat, a motorboat, and a helicopter. What do you want?" It's a matter of being able to see it and realizing it might come in a different way than what we expect. We might be expected to be lifted up off that roof, but our help came in a different way. So it's a matter of actually seeing, being open. And that all again starts in here and in here.
I've heard a story about a fisherman in the water, and he said, "Where's the water?" And it goes, "Well, the man is standing there, and he says, "Where's God?"
Yeah.
God's
Oh,
all
wow.
around the water.
Wow. That's really powerful. Thinking about that. Yeah.
You turn around, most people say, "Oh, when I see it, it's not to see it when I believe it."
Yeah. I'll see it when I believe it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is what we put that title.
What's that?
This is what we put that title.
Oh, really? Is it? Yeah.
I'm trying to remember that.
Wayne Dyer.
Oh, is it Wayne Dyer's? Yeah.
Isn't that the state of Missouri?
Yeah. Yeah, the Dunville. Yeah, I got, yeah. And that's what's interesting about unity. That's what I love, is everything's all turned around. It's all turned around. So, and that's what's neat to think about that, and that's what's empowering too. So, I'd like to take these thoughts into meditation. If nobody else has any comments, you're gonna. So I'd like you to get comfortable in your seats. Feel the chair support your body. Feel the floor supporting your feet. Just feel the air in the room. As you feel the air, you take a deep breath in. Know that just as there's an abundance of air, there's abundance of God's substance. Whatever we are in need of is already there. Jesus told us it's our Father's great pleasure to give us the kingdom. As you relax and breathe in that substance, I ask you to bring to mind a place where you feel lacking, a place where you feel unworthy, a place where you feel a victim. And give gratitude for this gift. Because even though it doesn't look like a gift, it's here showing us what's inside. And it's giving us an opportunity to change that. As you hold that situation in mind, I ask you to open yourself up to what needs to be changed within. See your own self-worth. See your abundance in life. See those people that love you. See those people that support you. See those things that bring you happiness. See the joy in your life that's already there in abundance. Know that all that is just a little taste of what's there for us. Make a commitment to open up your heart, and open up your eyes, and open up your mind to the abundance of the universe. To truly receive God's gifts. As we leave this meditation with a new vigor, a new understanding, a new belief in ourselves, through the power of God, I invite you to come into this room having new spiritual vision, new spiritual attitudes, and new spiritual beliefs. And affirm that life truly, truly is great. And so it is. And as you feel ready, as you feel empowered, I ask you to come back into this room. You feel as far as this book, I'm going to order more of them. I have a couple copies. I'm going to let the board look at them this week because I would like to use some of this to do youth ministry and bring the same message up into here, so we can kind of combine them. But after next week, then I'll have them there. So I invite people to take them out and read the simple truth. So it's good for everybody. Okay, and our music is, I do believe, I will receive. I do believe I will receive. And it's yellow. What is it? 18, yeah, 18F. Have no fear. See, we have an abundance of CDs up here. Never lack.